A 28-year-old tourist is sitting inside a sterile airport doctor's office. Without warning, his eyes go wide. He suffers a massive panic attack, leaps out of his chair, and bolts out the door, abandoning his passport, wallet, and luggage on the floor. He sprints in broad daylight across the entire airport terminal, violently pushing past crowds of passengers. He breaks through the main exit doors, crosses the parking lot, and actually scales an 8-foot barbed wire perimeter fence. Security cameras capture his final known moments. He hits the ground running at full speed into a thick, disorienting pine forest and a sprawling field of wild sunflowers, completely erasing himself from the map. The man running for his life is Lars Mittank. Up until this exact moment, there was no record of instability. He was a healthy German tourist on a standard summer holiday at the Golden Sands Resort in Bulgaria, drinking beers and watching football. How does a healthy young man turn into a terrified fugitive in the span of 72 hours? To understand how his reality shifted, we have to forensically examine the 3 specific physical and environmental triggers that may have collided in Varna. The timeline begins with a minor argument. Lars gets into a disagreement with a group of rival football fans outside a local fast food restaurant. Later that night, local thugs hired by that same group jump Lars in the street and beat him. The physical damage is highly specific. The attack leaves him with a ruptured eardrum. A local doctor examines the injury and gives Lars a strict warning. He cannot fly back to Germany yet. The cabin pressure inside a commercial airplane could permanently destroy his hearing. This creates an immediate, highly isolating situation. His friends have to board their pre-booked flight home. Lars is left completely alone in a foreign city, checking into a cheap, unfamiliar hotel near the airport to wait for his ear to heal. This isolation leads investigators to the first major theory, an undiagnosed head trauma. Those blows to the head during the street fight might have caused a secondary, hidden injury. This shows a subdural hematoma. After blunt force trauma, blood leaks from torn veins, pooling between the skull and brain. The patient may seem fine for days, but as pressure builds against the frontal lobe, it disrupts cognitive function, triggering sudden delirium. While a delayed brain bleed could explain physical confusion, it doesn't fully account for the highly structured, intensely paranoid delusions Lars began exhibiting the very next night. Once alone in his hotel, Lars's behavior shifts significantly. Hotel security cameras capture him pacing nervously up and down the hallways in the middle of the night, constantly checking over his shoulder and even hiding inside the elevator. At 3 a.m, he calls his mother in Germany. He is in a state of panic, whispering through the phone that people are actively trying to rob and kill him. He asks her to cancel all of his credit cards immediately. He also describes auditory hallucinations. He tells his mother he can clearly hear voices echoing in the hotel, whispering his name. These specific symptoms point toward a second theory, medication-induced psychosis. After diagnosing the ruptured eardrum, the Bulgarian doctor prescribed Lars an antibiotic called cefuroxime 500. While most antibiotics target the immune system, certain classes carry neurological risks. In rare cases, this medication is linked to extreme paranoia and psychotic breaks. When these rare side effects occur, they impair a patient's ability to distinguish actual threats from total delusion. If this was a chemical psychosis, it created an inescapable loop. To Lars, the whispering voices were real, physical sensory evidence that confirmed his fears were justified. On July 8th, Lars arrives at Varna Airport. He seeks a final medical clearance to board his flight, visiting the airport's internal physician, Dr. Kostov. The setting is routine. The doctor is checking his ear when the office door opens. A local airport construction worker walks in to drop off paperwork. Lars stands up, trembling, and shouts that he doesn't want to die. He initiates the escape that would be broadcast around the world, leaving every personal possession he owns behind in the office. This moment supports a third possibility, that Lars wasn't hallucinating at all, but was operating on genuine survival instincts. If the thugs from the previous night were still following him, Lars may have mistaken the construction worker walking into that room for an assassin sent to find him. When that door opened, the specific cause of his fear, whether it was neurological, chemical, or physical, stopped being the primary factor. His mind had reached a breaking point, and it triggered a pure, uninterrupted flight response. Over the last 10 years, authorities have conducted extensive search operations. They deployed tracking dogs, flew aerial drones over the forest, and mobilized private investigators. Despite these efforts, the search has yielded no resolution. Not a single piece of clothing, bone fragment, or trace of evidence has ever been recovered from the forest or the surrounding area. This landscape illustrates the difficulty of the search. It is a reminder of how quickly a person can be lost in dense terrain, especially when they are actively trying to avoid detection. We are left with a series of mundane incidents, a minor fight, a few days of isolation, and a standard prescription that may have converged to trigger Lars's disappearance. The case remains a prominent mystery because it highlights how a stable life can unravel when a few biological and situational variables shift at once. It forces us to consider how much our sense of security depends on a world we take for granted.